We are so excited to have you here today. This is the Bridge to Healing podcast, and I am so excited to bring you a very special guest today. Today we have with us Bernadette Thompson. Now, Bernadette, I met her at the IANS conference, and she is just such a beautiful soul. She is an intuitive ancestral healer. That's just huge. A certified grief and trauma facilitator and an end of life doula and a trained genealogist. That's a lot to put together and just such wonderful work. It was her spiritually transformative experiences through her own grief that began her spiritual awakening when her ancestors came to comfort and guide her. It was in that process that she was introduced to a spiritual being, Mark. Now, he is now her guide and constant companion. Bernadette guides those who have experienced loss, working with them to help them navigate grief and connect with spirit for healing. She teaches how to explore the grief journey through intuitive ancestral healing readings, opening to our deep connection with our ancestors and understanding how to open communicate with loved ones and guides in spirit. She is the owner of Tell Me Our Story Ancestral Healing. Bernadette, welcome to the podcast. I'm just so excited to hear your story. And I know that you help so many people. I think one of the things that people may not understand is what is ancestral healing? Maybe we should start there and then we can branch out to wherever you would like to go.
Yes. So, ancestral healing, well, let me just start a little bit before I explain that. The reason I know about ancestral healing is I've always had a deep love of ancestry, of families. And so that is where it begins. And ancestral healing is looking back into the lives of your ancestors and your really it's anybody I kind of call ancestors, anybody who's crossed. So that it is because sometimes they'll talk about generational trauma or ancestral trauma, and it's all kind of the same. It is looking back to the stories of your ancestors to understand who they were, who they are, and to see the lives they lived, and to understand that, like us, they have gone through some traumatic experiences. And trauma, science tells us now that trauma can be passed down. And through our DNA, the easy way to explain it is to think of, I use the idea of an anxiety gene, and it gets turned up to high when you experience trauma. You have, or things or struggles or grief. You're reacting in a way that's very high energy in that area. And that gene can be passed down, turned up,
Oh, wow.
so that when we receive it from an ancestor, that we are responding in this lifetime as if we have experienced trauma, the type of trauma that they may have experienced. Not the exact trauma, but the idea that their reactions to things is very hyped up. So, a glass of milk spills and it's a bigger thing when it's, or something smaller, that we're giving it a bigger trauma response.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that's kind of the understanding of what ancestral trauma can be. Ancestral healing comes from just knowing their stories, understanding their journey and how they made it through. We're proof that they made it through because we're here. And so when we understand their stories, we begin to realize, oh, we know now that we didn't experience the war-torn country. We didn't go maybe through the starvation, the famine. I'm all Irish, so the
Oh,
famine
wow.
families. So we didn't go through that. And now we can understand why some of the reactions that we have are that we feel that extra, that, okay, that's not ours, that belonged to them, but it has shown me who I am, because often you also see the resilience that comes through. And so it is that ability to understand that things can be passed down. And the other thing that can be passed down that is associated with someone going through trauma is patterns of behavior. So
Oh,
patterns of
really?
behavior develop sometimes as a way of protection to keep us from having to experience that. And, families pass those down. If I were to ask you, Serena, do you have any patterns of behavior that you can name in your family? Yeah, so you're smiling already.
Yes.
So that is what ancestral healing is understanding what's come to us and why we are who we are. And we all know that we are not only who we are like genetically, but the nurturing and what the exposures that we've had. And we can, when we understand that why our parents may have been so protective of us because they had been protected, but you know what I mean? Those types of
Right.
things, forgiveness begins to happen. And that
Yeah.
understanding makes us go, wow, okay, I may not like it. I may not want to forgive all of it, but I understand it. And understanding is like the beginning of the healing that can happen. So
Wow.
it's pretty amazing. And all of this came to me. I went through my own grief. I lost my husband 7 years ago to alcoholism.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so um, this was a ongoing, alcoholism. It's an addiction. It is a
Absolutely.
disease.
Hmm.
And he came to me 4.5 years before he passed away to tell me that he had a problem. And he came from a lot of alcohol in his family. His dad was an alcoholic. We both came from families that, alcohol flowed freely. So we always knew that that might be something, but it happened. And going through the experience of addiction is really challenging. It brings about a lot of chaos and uncertainty in families. And anybody that's listening that, there are many people that have this in their own family.
Yes.
So during that time, I was kind of leaning on my ancestors, who I knew deeply because I had done so much research about them, to be with me. And I went back to my Catholic roots. I'd actually heard, I don't know, some people may know him, John Edward. He's a
Oh,
medium
yes.
on the East Coast. And I had gone to see him after my dad had passed away. And he came out to the audience and talked about using the rosary. And
Oh,
so, as a
wow.
way of meditation before he came to read a group. And I'm like, I remember using the rosary. It's like, I
Hmm.
don't use it now, I'm not really a practicing Catholic, but I'm like, I could use the rosary. And I was struggling with the meditation part. So I began to use the rosary.
Well, good for
And
you.
yeah, and I imagined my ancestors sitting around a table
Oh,
as I was
wow.
doing. And the rosary beads go across many different spiritual
Yes.
traditions. It is very tactile. It is a way of giving, that energy, that physical energy that you're dealing with into your hands. And saying the prayers is like a mantra. So,
Yes.
saying the rosary is very similar to other people in their
The
spiritual
mala,
tradition.
etc. Right.
Yeah. So I was able to, so I started doing that and I began to have some spiritually transformative
Oh,
experiences.
wow.
So the first thing that happened was I had a visitation. And a visitation is a dream where you have, and it's often somebody that's close to you that you really know that comes to you from the other side. And it's so real, you feel like you are in a conversation with them. Some people feel like they really can give them a hug. It is one of those things. So my great aunt, Sister Lou, she was a nun, came to me in a visitation. And I knew her, and I had known her, but I was not close with her. She would come occasionally on a holiday or something, but not somebody that I really knew. But she was the one that had done the ancestry.
Oh,
So at any
wow.
rate, so I knew some of the
That's a
things.
great connection.
Yeah, so she came to me and I didn't want to, it was like a Zoom, and I didn't want to look at her. And she makes me look at her. I'm looking everywhere. And she gently holds my hands and has me look at her. And she says, "We hear your prayers." And I woke up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at that moment, I knew that spirit was with me, that they were listening and they understood what I was going through. I never, ever felt alone again because of
Oh my
that.
gosh.
But within a few weeks, I had another experience, spiritually transformative, and this was a channeling. And I mentioned that I'm all Irish. And when you say the rosary, for those that aren't Catholic, you say it in an audible voice, not like a voice that we're talking, but again, like a mantra, like it's that energy that you say it. So I began to say it in an Irish brogue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I knew I felt this channeling through me, and I was able to look at my tree the next. I didn't believe it when it happened, but I was able to look at my tree and see it, and it was my great great grandmother on my mother's side, and she when
Wow.
I
How
looked
did
at
you
it
identify that? You just identified it through knowing?
through a knowing, yeah.
Wow.
I went to the tree, thought it was on my dad's side because that's whose side I had been working on. And I'm like, okay, it's got to be on that side. And it was like, got nothing. And then I was looking on my mom's side, and it was like this energy came right to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she stayed with me for months. Every time I said the rosary, she channeled in with me and said the rosary with me. And the cadence, that she was using, the accent, the Irish accent, it was very very specific, and I couldn't use an Irish brogue if he asked me to do it now unless she came in. so so that's where my awakening began. And as I did, when I talked about doing ancestry, I had done ancestry for others. So I had done a lot of trees, and I continued to do that. They stayed with my ancestors stayed with me as David crossed, and my whole
Oh,
experience of that. But I continued to lean into the ancestry because it was so dear to me. And I realized as I was working with others that their ancestors were coming to me. And I was being
wow.
led as I was building other ancestral trees to parts of their story that maybe were more important than they needed to hear. Sometimes ancestors would literally come in and I might hear them.
I was just going to ask, how did they connect with you? How did they communicate with you?
They do a lot of knowing, and then once Mark, my guide, will help them come through.
Oh, wow.
So if there's information, and let's say I'm saying I'm getting this about, and then I share that with you, and you go, I heard something about that, but I didn't know if it was true. And the
Right.
ancestors would come in and I would literally be shaking my head saying, yes, they're saying this was true, that part of your story is true.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that is where spirit has been taking me. I never, I always say this. I'm one of those people who I did have some spiritual experiences growing up, but never thought I had. I never had a real knowing. I always thought I was somebody that needed to go to see somebody in order
Oh,
to be,
right.
you know. Um,
Yes.
but but what I learned is that we're all connected and that we can all learn how to do this.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so how do you, sorry, how do you arrange this kind of thing with someone? What's the process for someone to connect with you, or do they find you and then they say, okay, I need some ancestral healing here, or do you need to ask on the fly the ancestors to come in? How does the
As that
process work
always
for you?
so there's two things because spirit also has me teaching how to help people open to communicating with spirit, and but coming
Nice.
through from we start with family and understanding signs and things like that. So it comes through this ancestral healing that we open to spirit connection. So the way I work with people is, this my company is Tell Me Our Story Ancestral Healing, and the Tell Me Our Story is from the point of view of the child asking the parent to tell me our
Oh,
story. And so I usually start with somebody in having that conversation and wanting to help them understand, do you have that connection? Is this where you're wanting to know more? And if they have a tree already, we go diving into their tree and
oh,
looking for stories.
yes.
There's so many stories. The genealogist part of me is able to go through the records, the documents, the stories that are we find online now, and help people build that family story. And
Oh,
in the
wow.
process, we start connecting with ancestors. So the ancestors come in spiritually to me, sometimes directly with them, with the client that I'm working with.
Right.
They come in, they literally join the party as soon as we start work,
That's
and
incredible. So you can
yeah,
take your genealogy
yes,
experience and that beautiful gift that you have there of finding that information because I
yes,
know that not everybody can do that. Not
right,
everybody can find those details and then expand that to the healing piece. That is
right,
wonderful. I can
yeah.
imagine the results from people. They probably just
It,
feel so close to their ancestors and like
yes.
you said it just a whole new layer of understanding who they are.
It is an incredible layer of understanding. And it's so important because often people are in the grieving process or the anticipatory grieving process
Right.
that gets them thinking about family and gets them thinking about, ancestors. And this is all part of the healing process. Our ancestors are so close to us. Our loved ones and ancestors who have crossed over, they're really our first connections when we are trying to learn how to connect with the other side. And so when you start to look into them and you begin to feel like, oh, I can, people really do begin to feel the connection with them. And they
Wow.
always understand it, because they're all expecting like that spirit communication is like, a telephone call. Like
Right.
you're, you know,
Yes, I get that too.
and they want to fight against it when it's not. They want to say,
Yes.
no, it's not enough. And so this is a way which is so helpful for people who are not who are either on a grieving journey because they this helps them just to understand that they are a part of something and that those who have passed are over on the other side, and someday we're going to be there helping the ones that are here, you know so
Yes.
so a lot of times that is where and then just the fact that when people do want to begin to communicate, this is just the easiest realm to start with, and it is because you know them, you recognize signs from them, and so when I'm trying to help somebody move through their grief and know that they have this connection to this deep loved one, it it's just amazing. And we talk about signs. I'm sure, talk about tons of
Yes.
signs and the signs that you get, and I work with them to help them develop the signs and
Beautiful.
know that they can create the sign. Like if they don't feel that they have a sign, that they can create the sign and say, "This is our sign," and
Yes.
uh, um, and that will start to show itself to them. And just like we just start talking to spirit in a way that begins to open that communication. And so it's really, really helpful, especially for those who don't feel like they have those mediumship skills.
Right, because
And
I can imagine you teaching them how to do this when they go, wow, who am I? How I don't have that connection. I
Right.
can't communicate with the other side. And I always tell everybody can communicate with the
Yes.
other side. So you get to show them that. That is so
Yes.
wonderful.
Well, and I show it in a way. I have this amazing connection. I have this guide now, Mark, that is always with me. But the other piece of it is that I'm not a evidential medium. Like I'm not
Right.
somebody that will say there's a man standing behind you in a bowler hat and a mustache, you know, yet, like that hasn't opened for me. But the mediumship skills that have opened to me,
Right.
all started with knowing that my ancestors had come through and beginning to connect with my husband who had crossed over and,
Wow.
the different signs that we, just how they come to us. I love to share this story about David. David was my husband
Oh,
that
yeah.
crossed over. And I'll share this, I don't know how we're doing on time, but
We're good.
okay. I share this story about David. One, he came to me as a crow about 2 weeks after he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I'll make this part of the story really quick. But I took the dog for a walk. I hadn't had any signs from him. I didn't feel him crossing,
Oh
none of
my
it.
gosh. Yeah.
And I took the dog for a walk on this path in the woods, and this crow just kept following us and cawing the whole way. And I was like, what is that? Just not even, I had a ball, I was throwing the ball, just kind of. And then all of a sudden I realized it was going just ahead, just ahead. I'm like, that's David. He's a crow. And so,
How wonderful.
so he stayed with us the entire time until till we were leaving, went to a tree and stopped cawing as we were walking out. Driving home, I stopped at a light and there was a house next to me and they had 5 plastic crows in the yard. David used to tell me the story of the crazy crow lady that used to she had plastic crows in her yard. And
Oh
on the
my
day where,
gosh.
yes, she used to dress them up in in outfits like Santa, um, Halloween costumes, things like that.
I have to say, I've never seen a plastic crow on somebody's lawn. So that is definitely unique
Right.
and that's definitely a sign.
So that was my first one that I really got him. But I want to tell this special part about, we talk about numbers is the way that often people can connect with us. And music is a way, songs that come to us. So David died on 11/1/17. So it's 11117
Mhm.
is what I see. That spirit shows me. And they show it to me for many, many reasons. It's not always just David, but 11117s or anything with ones and a seven I know is coming from spirit. And this one day, I had to take a client. I was doing some elder care management, had to take a client on a long trip. It was like a 2 hour trip. So I put some music on, I had a playlist, and I'm talking to David on this trip. And I'm saying to him, play. And the playlist had songs that meant something to us, the two of us. So I'm asking him, play one of our songs, play one of our songs. Nothing's playing, everything else is playing, nothing's playing. And I know I'm like, come on. And then finally, the one song that plays is the one that I didn't really like, but he loved and I tolerated. It was Fat Man in the Bathtub. Was
That's
Little Feat,
great.
if anybody out there is, yeah. So I so then it was time to bring client back. I took them home, and now I'm thinking, oh, I got to go to the grocery store, and do that. So my mind has completely gone, but the playlist was still playing. I pull up again to another light to go to make the turn into the grocery store, and Stevie Nicks' Landslide comes on. And that was a song that was very near and dear to us.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, I knew it was him and he was coming in. And then I looked in front of me, and the license plate in front of me was 11117.
Wow.
So I share that because I want people to know as they begin to grow in their ability to recognize signs, that spirit really will play with us and help us, and make those important moments really important by giving you signs that you can't ignore, and you can't say that that wasn't them.
They are
So
really good at that, aren't they?
they're so good at that. They're so good at that. And so that's what spirit has me doing, is this ancestral understanding, how who we are today, and helping us understand what our lives are. For we also talk about, which I'm sure you talk about with your clients, the um, what our purpose is here, and this lifetime, and what we signed up for. My favorite story about you with JT, and
Yes.
hearing yourself saying, like, that's a great idea.
You, yes, and you just don't know. You just don't know how did I even do that? How is that even possible? But it is. There it is. And isn't it beautiful to know? Isn't it
Right.
beautiful to be able to guide people to understand that, to understand who they are and why they're here, and to do that just incredible healing work that
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift. I mean, just such a beautiful gift. And I know that sometimes we have to experience these things through our tragedies, through our experiences, the spiritually transformative experiences. But I'm just so grateful that you took it up, that you actually grabbed a hold of it and are doing it, because a lot of people might say, "Oh no, I'm just going to turn my head and not pay attention
Right.
to that." But you didn't.
Yeah, I think what it was, once, and I just have written about this. Once spiritual, you start to awaken spiritually, it becomes the itch that you can't scratch. And you probably know this from the people that keep coming back to you, and they want to know more and they want to know more, because there is this, when we open that door, even, or the window. I talk to people a lot, just open the window a crack. You don't have to believe everything. Just open, that cardinal that is sitting out on that tree staring at you is your mom. You know what I mean? Just to, and I think that's just one of the ways, is as we begin to open a tiny bit, we just want to know more. And that's really what happened to me. Is
Wow.
once I once Sister Lou came to me, I realized, okay, at that point, I didn't feel, so connected, but I was like, they can at least hear me going that way. And then
Yes.
when my great great grandmother came in again, it was the channeling. So I'm like, okay, you've opened up to this channeling. So I knew that was
That's
very,
huge.
yeah, that was a huge spiritual awakening, or a spiritually transformative experience. But still, it was still one way, kind of like it not real. It wasn't like I was getting real answers. But then as the signs opened up, and then as my spirit guide came in, and that came with working with a spiritual counselor. Like, and I've
Oh,
had it
wonderful.
in my lifetime, as you know, I think we all need them, and we all
Absolutely.
go, and doing that opened Mark to me. and
Nice.
and now I get answers. Now I have answers. Now I get answers both ways. I mean, can ask
Wow.
questions, and that is something that all of us can do. It just, it isn't always people who have had NDEs, near death experiences, often do get that, um, will have that awakening that happens instantly. But for most of us, we go through the process. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, if someone wants to kind of peruse your website or get to know you a little bit, or sign up for some
Mm-hmm.
services for you, because I know this is huge stuff. This is huge healing,
Mm-hmm.
and I encourage everyone to go take a look and to see what fits with you. What do
Mhm.
you want to do? Even if you already know your genealogy, even if you already
Right.
know the ancestral stuff, there's always nuggets. There's always stuff
Yes.
to uncover. So how would you suggest someone connect with you?
Well, my website is tellmeourstory.com. And that is the best way to get all of the information. And
Perfect.
I do both. So I do the ancestral part of it. I can do as a genealogist, do build the tree, help people. And so you can, there's a way, there's a lot of information right there. As soon as you get there, you
Great.
can sign up for a healing session. You can sign up for a session to a question and answer session to just talk to me, and so we can, I can help you make those decisions. But as far as what the work that I do, I can build the tree and then go through that ancestral healing with you. If you have the tree, we can dive into it and then go through the healing part. And some people just come for healing and
Yes.
just looking for signs and things like that. And that is something that I do as well. So as soon as you get to the website, right at the top, it'll tell you that you can sign up to get some more information. So it'll have a little thing where you can download some more information. You can sign up for a small talk with me where we a Zoom where we can talk about your specific situation, or you can sign up for a healing session right away.
Oh,
And that's
great.
yeah. So
That's
that's
awesome. And I figured that someone that does as many things as you do, so many wonderful things, that there would be something for everyone,
yeah.
wherever they're at energetically, wherever they're at with their healing or even with their grief or whatever they
Yes.
need, there's something for everyone, definitely.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone, I'll put the information in the description for the podcast also. I really encourage everyone to go there. This is just such a beautiful gift that you have, Bernadette, and I'm very excited to be able to showcase you right now, because man, do we need healing or what?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need so much.
Well, it's just without going into, but it's true. And when we look back and see what our ancestors have gone through, we realize there has been many times in history that there was a lot of chaos, and
Yes.
we are evidence that there was resilience as well, or we wouldn't be here.
Yes, absolutely. And any way that we can find just the guidance and the doorway of where we can go, what to walk through to help
Mhm.
us with just the junk that we have here, the junk, like you said, we've carried forward from the
Mhm.
ancestors and all of that. Just any of that helps our frequency, helps our vibration. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Bernadette, for being a part of this. And I'm just so grateful to you for this time and for the beautiful work that you do. Thank you so
Oh,
very much.
thank you.
Everybody, please go to Bernadette's website and we will talk again next time. Thank you for joining us.